40 years ago, November 23, 1977, Thanksgiving Eve, Beth Barr vanished. A cute second grader whose seventh birthday was just a few weeks away, she was among the Johnson School students dismissed an hour or so early for Thanksgiving break, a tradition in Wilkinsburg schools before holidays. As she walked up Ardmore Boulevard, she passed the Port Authority bus stop where, earlier that day, a man had accosted a young woman as she waited for a bus. Beth made a left onto Marlborough Avenue and a right onto Traymore. It was near that intersection that a witness reported seeing a man carrying a schoolgirl fitting Beth's description into a dull blue sedan with red and white license plates. Ironically, that car fit the description of the one driven by the man who tried to pick up the woman at the bus stop. Police searched door to door. They enlisted police from neighboring departments to help search for her, but those searches led nowhere. And the arrest of a salesman from McCandless who came up with an alibi for the time in question was also a dead end. Winter came, so did spring, and another year passed. The case went cold, until a man walking his dog in the woods in March 1979 near Westland Memorial Cemetery in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, stumbled across a partially exposed skeleton, Beth's. 40 years ago, I was a journalist, just 5 months on the job when I began covering Beth's disappearance. The case haunted me. It brought back memories of a news story about a little girl who had been murdered in Pittsburgh in 1967. I still have the newspaper clipping. And the kidnapping of Peggy Ann Bradnick of Shade Gap, Pennsylvania, by someone known as the Mountain Man in 1966 was something I followed closely as a 10-year-old. Perhaps this early interest in wanting justice for young victims is why I followed Beth's case all these years. On the 25th anniversary of Beth's disappearance in 2002, I began to think that witnesses and even the perpetrator were getting up in years. I wanted to see justice served and realized time was running out. I was a feature writer for Gateway Newspapers, which had been the chain I'd worked for covering the kidnap and murder for the Wilkinsburg Gazette. I proposed to the executive editor, the late Edith Hughes, that I tackle a series featuring the unsolved cold cases in the east suburbs of Pittsburgh. So in 2003, with the blessing of Edith and the help of Allegheny County Homicide Division, local police departments, and a few co-workers, we carried out the series. Since it appeared online, we had some people contact us with possible leads. I left Gateway in 2011 for Patch.com, AOL's 24-hour local news source. Soon after I started, I was contacted by a person known to me before only through police reports as the woman at the bus stop. She allowed me to publish a story for Patch on the 34th anniversary of Beth's disappearance that, for the first time, publicly told her side of what happened that day. After the story ran on Patch, more people contacted me with information about possible suspects and theories. When Patch laid off its Pittsburgh staff, I had some free time on my hands and began to consider publishing a blog dedicated to finding Beth's killer. My hope was by sharing the stories told to me by people who believed they knew the killer or had information, we could all somehow put together pieces of the puzzle. Without the constraints of journalistic standards, I was able to change people's names for their safety and tell their stories without worrying about an editor cutting their words or requiring second sources. The blog resulted in others coming forward. You can find that blog, One Day in November, Who Killed Beth Barr, online at whokilledbethbarr, all one word, lowercase, .wordpress.com. Again, that's whokilledbethbarr.wordpress.com. 40 years ago, there were no smartphones. DNA tests weren't used to identify criminals until 1986. There was no social media. I used an IBM Selector typewriter to type coverage about Beth's murder. The newspaper printed only black and white pictures and was pasted up on a large board in our production area. Today, that witness might have snapped a picture of Beth being carried away by her abductor and his license plate number. An Amber Alert could have informed the public about the kidnapping. Social media would have spread her photo, a photo of the car, and the composite sketch of the kidnapper. Numerous sources would have carried the news almost instantaneously via web, TV, radio, Twitter, and Facebook. Perhaps she would have been found unharmed and her kidnapper put to justice. Or at least his DNA might have been found on her clothes, which police say were destroyed when the homicide division experienced a flood in the evidence room. 40 years ago, a little girl vanished. 40 years later, many still remember her at Thanksgiving time. As a detective once told me, there's always someone who knows something. Think about it. There's always someone who knows something.